Hey guys, so we're going to start doing the skull. This is week 3. This one will probably end up being multiple videos since the skull is so long. But we're going to start from the top. So our first one is the coronal suture. So that is this suture along here. Then you have the squamous suture. You have 2 of those right here and then on the other side as well. The lambdoid suture is here on the back, right? See that going along the side here? It's named that because it kind of looks like the Greek symbol lambda. Then you have the sagittal suture, which is right here, right down the middle. Then the 8 bones that make up the cranial vault, you have the frontal bone, which is going to be the one in the front. The temporal bone, you have 2 of those right here, and then on the other side as well. Then you have the 2 parietal bones. The occipital bone in the back, this guy. And then the sphenoid and ethmoid. I do not have a disarticulated one with me right now, but you can see both of those. Come on. There we go. So in here you can see the sphenoid is this bone right here, all along here. And then the ethmoid, you can see a little bit right here. In my other videos, I'll have those disarticulated, and then you can see those. Then the sinuses, you can't actually see those on here. The book has a very good picture that highlights that on like a person's face, so I suggest looking at those. But the general area for those would be the frontal sinus is up in here. Then you have the maxillary sinus in here and in here, and then the sphenoid and the ethmoid air cells are very deep inside the skull, so I would just look at the picture for that. Then we have the features of the skull bone, so the very nitty-gritty part. So talking about the frontal bone, you have the supraorbital foramen. That's going to be the little holes above the orbits. And on this version of the skull, it's kind of broken off, but you can see the indent here that they were trying to show you that hole. Then the frontal sinus we've already gone over, and then the frontal squama is the flat portion right here. Then she goes into the parietal bones with the sutures, which we have already done. So then moving on to the temporal bone, this bone gets pretty intense. It has a very long section. So our first one is the petrous portion, so that's going to be on the inside, and it is this, come on, focus, there we go. It's this general region in here. You see this little indent right there? That is where the cochlea sits, your inner ear, and so it's going to be in this general region. Then you have the external acoustic meatus, and so that's going to be your outside ear hole, so that's this guy. Then you have the internal acoustic meatus, which is this guy right here. Then the mandibular fossa, flip over, and it is under this rubber piece. It's where the mandible articulates with the temporal bone. Then you have the styloid process, which is this very pointy portion. Then you have the mastoid process, which is directly behind it, this giant piece right here. Then you have the stylomastoid foramen, which is the little hole in between the styloid and mastoid process, right here. Then you have the jugular foramen, and let's see, take the mandible off. That is this giant hole right here, and the way that I remember it is if you look at it, it looks kind of jagged, and I think of jugular, that's how I remember it. Then you have the carotid canal, and that's going to be anterior to the jugular foramen, and it's this guy right here. So this is the jugular foramen, and then this is the carotid canal right here. Then you have the zygomatic arch. The zygomatic arch is this portion right here, and it's actually made up of 2 bones. So the temporal bone portion is this right here, and it is the zygomatic process of the zygomatic arch. It is named after the bone it is touching, not the bone it's on. So it's the zygomatic process of the zygomatic arch. Then you have the occipital bone. We have the occipital condyles right here. So the condyles are rolling surfaces. So these are the rolling surfaces for the atlas, the C1 bone. Then you have the foramen magnum, the giant hole here, for your spinal cord to go through. Then inside the foramen magnum, you have this other hole right there, which is the hypoglossal canal, and it's the passageway for one of your cranial nerves, the hypoglossal nerve, right here. All right, so that's going to be it for this. We're going to do the sphenoid and the ethmoid bone separately.